Hi, welcome back. This video is going to be looking at Germany in 1918. It'll focus on one year in particular, and it's going to look at people that went, such as the Kaiser, and new faces that arrived. In particular, it's going to be focusing on what happened in the aftermath of the war. Right, so before we start, if you can just get yourself some scrap paper and a pen, jot down any events you do know and any key dates you know as well. It'll help you, because that way you can figure out what knowledge you do and don't have. And without further ado, let's get cracking. Generally, people think the signing of the Armistice was the end of the war, but you can actually argue that in Germany the war was already over way before that, because in Stuttgart and Hanover, for example, rioters and strikers were all on the streets. The army had refused to fight back against these strikers. In Kiel, for example, in October 1918, there was a mutiny where the navy was told to destroy its own ships by the Kaiser, and they refused. Also, if you go to the 7th of November, you'll realize that actually in the south of Germany is a state called Bavaria, and they decided that we're no longer part of Germany, and they were led by a Jewish communist guy. His name was Eisner, and they said, we're no longer following Germany at all, we're a separate entity. So with revolutions taking place all across Germany, the Kaiser is informed by his generals that he has to abdicate in order to restore control. Believe it or not, the Kaiser actually says, no, I don't need to, why should I? It isn't until his own general, his second in command, General Wilhelm Groener, actually tells him that you need to step down because the army no longer supports you. So on the following day, the Kaiser decides to go on his merry way and abdicate, which means give up the throne and escape to Holland, essentially. So the abdication of the Kaiser means that there's a power vacuum in Germany. See, the communists have been trying to set up a government in Berlin, and they're ready to announce it. Phillipp Scheidermann, that's his actual name, who's one of the leading members of the SPD, or the Social Democrat Party, who are more moderate. He does not want the communists in there, so he decides that he's going to declare a new government. So he opens up the windows from the balcony of the Reichstag on the 9th of November, decides that there's going to be a new government to make sure that the communists don't get to power. So after Scheidemann's announcement, the SPD quickly worked to get a new government in place. They start off by making sure that the current Chancellor, whose name was Max von Baden, the Chancellor's like the equivalent of, say, like Britain's Prime Minister, he passes on the power to the leader of the SPD, who is a guy named Friedrich Ebert. And Ebert then, the following day, on the 10th of November, decides that he's going to make an agreement with the army to work together to keep the communists out of power, because the army don't like the communists either. So both of them work together to make sure the communists never get into power. Ebert goes further than that. He doesn't just get the army on side, he also suspends the old Reichstag, and he puts 6 members of a new council called the Councils of the People's Representatives in positions. They're all moderate people, so he makes sure that the extremist parties never get a say. It's a genius step, because it means that Germany is now more moderate, and the anarchy or extremism is less likely to take place. On the 11th of November, one of Ebert's representatives, his name is Matthias Erzberger, he signs the Armistice. Now, the Armistice was a formal agreement between Germany and the Allied nations saying that we're going to end the First World War. It's a bit of a controversial topic, because some people in Germany believe that Germany never lost the war, they were just retreating and it wasn't an actual defeat. When the Armistice was signed, a lot of people in Germany were happy with the idea that peace was coming. However, what they didn't realise was that by signing the Armistice, they'd also agreed to terms to this peace that they'd made. It wasn't a great idea, because it meant that Germany would pretty much get blamed for the war, which we'll look at later in the Treaty of Versailles. You made it to the end of the video. If you've made it to this point, thank you, and I hope the video has been helpful. If you do get a chance, have a look at the videos on the YouTube page, and if you do get a moment, please do subscribe. Thank you.